morning. We're here this morning to hear oral arguments in the case of Cuthbert Johnson versus Dr. Barbosa. Each party will have 15 minutes in which to present their case. The appellant may reserve up to 5 minutes for rebuttal. If you're the appellant and you wish to reserve that time, when you come up to the podium, let me know. I'm keeping track of the clock and will keep you apprised of the passage of time. We are being visually and audibly recorded to be posted online, so please try to maintain behind the podium as much as possible. We have read the briefs and we're ready to proceed when you are. Mr. Johnson, you want to come up? Get a retain any time for rebuttal, sir?
Yeah, after my presentation, I'll be ready for
Whatever
rebuttal.
time we have left, you'll save for when he's done.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Go ahead then, sir.
Okay, may it please the court, my name is Cuthbert Johnson. I'm appearing pro se, representing myself. This is a simple case about a orthodontist who I began treatment with in July 2009 for braces for my teeth. Needless to say that the treatment didn't go very well. And then I ended treatment with her in August of the following year in 2010. I requested I requested my dental records from her. Specifically, I requested something called the plaster cast models, which she did not give to me. From there, I filed a complaint with the American Association of Orthodontists. And then after that, I filed a complaint with the Ohio State Dental Board. And then after that, I filed a miscellaneous suit with the Summit County Clerk of Courts in April 2011. And then from there, I retained, a few attorneys, and here we are at this point. Pretty much, I've been requesting my records for some time now, and she simply hasn't given them to me. She's given me a few records, pictures, X-rays. I believe she threw in there some radiographs, but I was specifically requesting a very specific dental item, and that's called as I mentioned before, it's called the plaster cast models. They're also referred to as study models. They can also be called just casts. I mean, they have various names to them. To this date, she hasn't given them to me.
Are you referring to when you first went in for your evaluation, the mold they made of your teeth, or are you talking about the cast that they do whenever you have a retainer made?
Exactly.
The cast with the retainer?
The actual cast, exactly. Actually, matter of fact, when I was given the retainer is actually placed on the plaster cast model when it's given to me. Matter of fact, like when I'm actually given the retainer, they just don't give it to you in like a little bag. They just don't hand it to you. They just don't hand it to you by hand. It's actually placed on the plaster cast model. So it's actually something that I've seen before, like in her office. So I'm glad that you asked that. Let's see. So she actually terminated me as a patient in October of 2011. So from that point in time, she had a period of 7 years to not only keep the entire dental file, but she had a duty as a licensed orthodontist to keep the cast models as well. And as you can see in my brief that I submitted to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, she actually has a statement where she says that she actually had the plaster cast model. At one point, I was in her office and I was requesting my dental file, and she said she not only says that she had the cast model, but she said that she wasn't going to get it. She said that she wasn't going to let me see them.
You say you've already seen them once.
I've seen them once. At that time, I mean, things were just really, I was debating whether I was going to bring a medical malpractice lawsuit against her, and I wanted to see my dental file, because specifically that particular dental item.
Well, let me ask you a question. Now in 2018, which has been nine years since you had the initial cast made,
Right.
she claims she doesn't have it, you've never gotten it. How would you be made whole at this point?
see that particular like item again.
Well, she keeps saying she doesn't have it,
Mhm.
and say hypothetically she really doesn't have it, then what can she do that would make you whole at this point?
Right now, I'm asking for, really asking for my money back. I mean, I
Did
know.
you put a dollar figure in your complaint when you filed the complaint, asking for the money back?
Did I put a dollar figure in my complaint? Let's see, I don't believe that I did, Your Honor.
I mean,
However.
the reason I'm asking is because this court has a mediation program.
Okay.
And if, I'm thinking, well, geez, if you'd feel better, if she made new plaster cast and just gave you the plaster cast, that solved the problem. I'm trying to think of some other way to resolve this case, because I don't believe you did ask for a specific money amount.
Mhm.
And I don't know how to make you whole at this point. I don't know what you need that would satisfy you at this point. I know you've been trying for years to get this resolved.
Right.
And she continues to say, I don't have it, so I don't know what would make you whole. I don't know what we can do as a court of appeals
Mhm.
in response to the brief you filed, and I don't know what
Mhm.
I'm wondering if mediation would help at all.
I mean, it just might, Your Honor. I mean, although at this point, I mean, although I didn't put the exact dollar amount of the money that I'm asking, I know I paid $4,000 for the orthodontic work that I received from her, and and at this point, if it's available, I'm also requesting like damages.
So you would have had to do that in your initial complaint at the trial court level.
In the initial complaint. Okay.
And then time's way run for that at this point, but,
Okay.
so I'm saying, I don't know what we can do. I don't know what this court can do.
I see. Okay. I mean, that's a very, fair assertion. Exactly, what can be done at this point. I mean, that's pretty much it. From where I'm coming from, in a nutshell, I'm just asking for the money back. I have records of how much I paid, which was $4,000, and if it's available, some sort of damages for some sort of damages for withholding records, especially when you have a patient such as myself who's just been requesting them for such a long of a time. You have a lot of instances where, I mean, although it's thankfully not in my case, but you have patients who get into accidents, and they can only, like, their bodies can literally only be identified by their dental records. And then, you just don't want to get in a situation where, you have an orthodontist or a dentist or a doctor for that matter who's saying, I don't have them. They've been destroyed by the lab. They're no longer available. Especially when it's in that retention period. From the time that the victim was within the care of the doctor. So I mean, I like me myself. I filed the lawsuit with the Summit County Clerk of Courts in September of 2016, which was well within the retention period of the time that I terminated care with Dr. Violet. I ended treatment with her in October 2010. So I specifically dialed up the Ohio State Dental Board just to get a concrete answer for exactly how long like a licensed dentist or orthodontist needs to retain those records. And they specifically told me that it was a 7. They told me that it was an indefinite amount of time. So like preferably just preferably for forever. But she said that in the event that that's not possible, or just what have you, she said that you definitely have to hang on to them for a 7-year period. So I mean I not only filed my original miscellaneous suit with the Summit County Clerk of Courts back in April of 2011, but also filed this particular lawsuit, which I'm appealing right now, in September 2016, which is well within that 7-year period. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to ask a question. Is it your belief that plaster mold is part of the files?
Oh, absolutely.
It's part of the file.
Oh, absolutely, Your Honor. I mean, not only, like if you look at the memo which is in my brief that I submitted to the court, it not only says that an orthodontist is supposed to hang on to the entire record, which can, potentially just, which can encompass anything. I mean, that can even be like a video that was made of an entry video of the patient with the orthodontist. I mean, basically, like I'm trying to say, it could be anything. But like in that memo by the Ohio State Dental Board about their specifically addressing their policy about dental records, I mean, it specifically states that models are part of the record. It's definitely in my brief that I submitted to the court, but I can even show it to you right now if need be. But that's well within that's part. That's like models. Models are like right up there with like pictures and like radiographs and X-rays. It's not anything that's like like out of the norm. It's almost like the equivalent of getting like a pair of sneakers that have shoelaces with it. So I'm not like when I was requesting the cast models, I wasn't asking for anything that was like I wasn't asking for anything that was just completely left, just completely crazy.
You have just about 4.5 minutes left if you want to say it, and you can respond to him when he goes. If you want to do that, or you can keep talking.
Okay, so I'll just conclude very, very briefly. Basically, all I'm asking for is just for my money back, which I think is well within my well within my right. Plus, I'm asking for some sort of damages. I know I probably should have mentioned that before, but yeah, that's what I'm asking for.
Okay. You'll have about over 3 minutes left, please.
Okay.
Madam Chief Justice, Your Honors, may it please the Court. My name is Michael Pelagali, and it is my honor to be here this morning on behalf of Appellee Dr. Violet Barbosa. Your Honors, this Court should affirm the decision of the trial court granting Dr. Barbosa summary judgment because Mr. Johnson's request for his dental records, which unfortunately and unnecessarily has turned into 7 years of harassment against my client, Dr. Barbosa, his request has been satisfied by Dr. Barbosa at her own expense on multiple occasions. This is exactly why, and among a myriad of other reasons, the trial court granted summary judgment. Mr. Johnson went through the timeline of this case, and he did set forth, somewhat of an accurate chronology of when things happened, but he left a lot out. He calls this a simple case which began in 2009 when he treated with Dr. Barbosa. In June of 2010, he received excellent results and had a retainer fabricated for the post-treatment care. In August of 2010, while he was treating with Dr. Barbosa, he comes and visits her. She says, "You need 6 more months of retainer care. We'll follow up then." According to her records, which have been provided to Mr. Johnson, he became agitated, visibly so. She told him, "If you need to see another orthodontist, you don't agree, do that." He gets upset. He files an ethical complaint with the American Association of Orthodontists. And after that, Dr. Barbosa dismisses him from her care due to noncompliance and due to some harassing and unprofessional behavior in her office in terms of showing up unannounced without a visit, becoming visibly agitated and yelling at Dr. Barbosa. She dismisses him. She provides him with a list of orthodontists that he can be referred to and says, "Have your orthodontist request the records from me." In the meantime, the AAO dismisses their investigation, saying that there was, quote, "no disciplinary action warranted." He doesn't give up. He files an ethical complaint with the Ohio State Dental Board. And this is important because you heard him today cite the Ohio State Dental Board's, quote unquote, policy about retention of records, and that Dr. Barbosa has this duty to preserve every medical record, dental record, and every model taken for a period of 7 years or, in his words, indefinitely or forever. It's not true. The dental board policy specifically states that it's a suggestion that they keep records for 7 years or indefinitely if longer. She's done that. She's kept all the records and given them to him. She's given him office visit notes, pre-treatment, post-treatment records, pictures. Everything in her office she has provided back in 2011, another time after 2011, and then most recently, January of 2017.
What about the plaster cast mold that he wants for the very first time he had his impressions made?
The plaster cast mold. I had to learn a lot about this myself, Your Honor, because I'm not an orthodontist, but the way Dr. Barbosa describes this to me, and as she did in front of the Summit County Court of Common Pleas in the 2011 action, and as she did in this most recent action, the plaster, there are impressions made which are made from disposable materials that create these plaster casts, which is also a disposable material. Those plaster casts, the impressions are discarded. That's not what he's asking for. He's asking for the plaster casts. Those are sent to a factory, a laboratory, where they are used in the retainer fabrication process. Now, from my discussions with Dr. Barbosa and doing some independent research and her talking with that lab, part of that retainer fabrication process, they actually break the plaster casts. They're broken during the fabrication process. I don't know what Mr. Johnson believes he saw at Dr. Barbosa's office. It's the first time he's ever mentioned that in any of the briefings over the past 7 to 8 years that we've been doing this. And frankly, he didn't see what he believes he saw, because Dr. Barbosa from the beginning has said she is not in possession of these plaster casts. He, in his brief, relies heavily on one of the statements that was made in her answer to his petition for discovery in 2011. She made clear, and she signed a statement with the summary judgment motion that says that was an error in dictation and it was an error in transcription. And what's telling about this is that in 2010, after he filed his the complaint with the American Association of Orthodontists, he sent a follow-up letter to them saying, I have some updated information and I want to provide you. Within that letter, which is before this answer that Dr. Barbosa mistakenly says she had them, in this letter he goes through conversations that he had with her, in which she said, I don't have these casts or models, I don't have them. And he says, I repeatedly asked her and she kept saying I didn't have them. From the get-go, he's known that that Dr. Barbosa doesn't have these models. There's nothing else that she can do for him. It's, I believe, the third time now as of January 2017 that she has made copies of all the records. Most recently, she sent them to my office. We had them indexed for Mr. Johnson, and we sent them to him. We did that because Mr. Johnson and his attorney had agreed with us that if we did that, if we provided everything in our possession, that they would dismiss the lawsuit. We agreed. His attorney signed a statement that said that he received all the records, and then Mr. Johnson backed out of the deal. His attorney withdrew from the case, and we had to file a motion for summary judgment. That's where we're at today, and if I can go back real quickly, the Ohio State Dental Board dismissed the case. They said, we've conducted our investigation. If there was this policy that was so set in stone, and if Dr. Barbosa had done something wrong, surely the Ohio State Dental Board would have said something about that, would have made that opinion known. They didn't. They dismissed it. He goes on and files the 2011 petition for discovery. What he didn't tell you was that that was dismissed fairly quickly with an order prohibiting him from filing anything else in Summit County against Dr. Barbosa or her practice. That was in April of 2011, just a few months, if less, than after he filed that lawsuit. Apparently, he continued to call the Summit County Court and harass the court officials to the point where Magistrate Walker, in July of 2012, wrote him a letter saying, you need to stop calling, you need to stop harassing us, and those were her words. She called this harassment against the court, and that if you do, we'll be calling the police and filing formal charges against you.
He was never declared a vexatious litigator.
He was not. So from that point in 2012, maybe he got the hint that he shouldn't be harassing people about this anymore. There was a brief period of time, I think for maybe a year or two, where nothing was going on, and then, as he said, he had a few lawyers contacted. He had, from our count, 4 lawyers within December 2014 to January 2016 send Dr. Barbosa a letter saying, I've been retained to represent Mr. Cuthbert Johnson for records. She responds to these requests, she tells the lawyers what's going on, and then the next month a new lawyer pops up with a new letter, until this most recent attorney files this most recent case, and he later did withdraw from the case. I only go over this timeline again with you to establish the fact that he's not interested in his dental records anymore. He told you, and this is the first time I've heard it, he wants his money. He wants money back. He's never asked for this before. He's never said anything about this before. And frankly, Dr. Barbosa isn't inclined to give him anything. She provided excellent care. She continued to treat him for a period of time, even after he instituted ethical complaints against him with the AAO. And it was only after he became threatening and disruptive in her office that she said, you've got to go somewhere else. There's nothing more that she can do for Mr. Johnson. She's had to go through this for the past 7 years now. She's retained me. She tried to do this by herself and was successful. She retained me. I can tell you firsthand that she loses sleep over this. She doesn't understand why Mr. Johnson won't leave her alone. She's trying to get on with her practice, and she constantly, for the past 7 years, has to be reminded about this, has to go through her records, has to, think about this, and almost canceled appointments today to be here because she wanted this court to understand how much this matters to her and wants this to end. She had patients, and I advised her not to come to treat the patients instead. But the point is, Your Honors, that she's fulfilled his request on at least 3 occasions. She's been subjected to contact by numerous attorneys who, shortly after being retained, don't represent him anymore for some reason. And now is the 2nd or 3rd iteration of a formal lawsuit after having her professional integrity and ethics called into question, but thankfully cleared by both the Ohio State Dental Board and the American Association of Orthodontists. She's a dedicated, intelligent, skilled, and conscientious medical care provider. She has bent over backwards, not only in providing great care to him, but to satisfy these requests in 2011, in 2012, and in 2017. She has done everything she can. There is no other relief that can be granted. And it's for these reasons that this court should affirm the trial court's decision to grant summary judgment. And if Your Honors don't have any other questions, I yield the remainder of my time.
You're done, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, you have about 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
And then, so during this time.
You're done. After you can respond to what he said, and if you have nothing else to say, you can stand as it is, but you still have about 3.5 minutes left.
Okay, I just have a few simple things. Just to respond to what he was mentioning about how she said that she never had the models, and she's pretty much just completely washing her hands of her responsibility of keeping those. Not only did she say in her answer to my miscellaneous suit that she possessed them, and in addition to me seeing them, when I was in her office with the retainer on them, he said that.
How do you know that was your? How do you know that wasn't just a generic model?
Just a generic model.
Yeah.
The retainer fit like perfectly on the cast model. So if it was somebody else's model like that, and that's actually why I wanted to see those models, because they're like if you look at a picture of a patient's teeth, that's a 2D representation, whereas like a model that's a 3D representation. That's why they're also referred to as study models, because you can look at them, you can look at the shape of somebody's teeth, you can look at the shape of their jaw. So if that wasn't my model, the retainer wouldn't fit properly on it. There'd be some give, there'd be some wiggle, and that's actually probably the main reason at that specific time that I wanted to see that cast model, because you can see exactly what was going on at that particular moment in time. Whereas with a picture, it can be anything. You can change the light. They can be digitally changed. That's why the cast model was so important to me, and it still is. But honestly, Your Honor, I've retained multiple lawyers, and a lot of them, my most recent one just completely backed out on me. Okay, I feel as if I'm running out of time, but it's a very cut and dry case. Doctors, dentists, they're supposed to hang on to those, and when I say those, that means everything, the pictures, the models, and everything. And then, as you'll see in the brief, she said that she had them, and that was while she was with it. That was while I was within her care. She said that she possessed the models, and she needed to have to hang on to those up until October of this year. Lawyer Lord Pellingelli, no disrespect or anything, but, I mean, that's just what it is. And, the finger can be pointed at me, but, and I wasn't harassing the court. I was just in pursuit of those records. As you can see, I'm a very upstanding. I'm actually in law school myself. I'm coming all the way from California to be with you today. I go to Whittier Law School. I'm a 2L at Whittier Law School in Costa Mesa, California. So I'm not just I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but I'm not just some guy who's just trying to who's just trying to get on people's nerves here for lack of a better expression. So I mean. Yeah, I mean that's my main contention. I mean, she had the records that as she mentioned in her answer, and she needed to hang on to them until October of last year, which she has clearly failed to do. And I would definitely like my money back.
All right, thank you very much for your presentations today. The court will take a